Welcome, everybody. The NFL regular season is over, and today it is time to look ahead to the offseason. That means it's time to do mock drafts, as we're going to look at the Houston Texans 2023 NFL mock draft. All right, as mentioned, we're going to look at the Houston Texans and their 2023 NFL draft with this mock draft simulator. We're using the NFL mock draft database simulator. And as a reminder, we are not going to be accepting trades with this. The trades usually come in that aren't really fair for one side or the other. And it's still before free agency, so it's kind of hard to tell what trades teams would accept. But it's a good exercise to do to see if the teams keep their picks, where they might be able to select some players here. If the Texans won their last game of the season, they could have had the first overall pick. They slide down to number 2. They're a team that has been rebuilding over the last several years. They still have some rebuilding to do. They need help a lot of different places on this team, and it's a good thing they have extra picks from that Deshaun Watson trade to the Browns. They'll be able to really revamp this roster and to make Ryans his first year as head coach. So let's get it started. All right, with the second overall pick, we see Will Anderson go number 1 overall. Not a surprise there. If the Bears keep that pick, they will likely go in that direction. Jalen Carter would be a good pick if you're going for best player available. I really do like him as a player, very disruptive on the interior of the defensive line. But you got to get a franchise quarterback at some point. For me, I would go C.J. Stroud. He's the guy, I think, between him and Bryce Young. It's a matter of preference. Bryce Young's a little bit better out of structure. C.J. Stroud's bigger and has more accuracy. I personally like C.J. Stroud a little bit better. I don't think either of these quarterbacks are quite the tier of guys we've seen in the past, like Trevor Lawrence or Joe Burrow. Just second tier down. With the second pick, I typically look to go wide receiver, but I'm a little bit lower on Jordan Addison than most people out there. I think he's a fringe first-round player, a guy who can be in the slot, can be outside, but just I didn't really see it on tape, the amount of, I guess, the amount of talent to warrant a pick in the top 12. For that reason, I would go with the best player available here, and that's Jalen Carter. It's interesting that Bryce Young has lasted this far. That likely won't happen. But Jalen Carter, as mentioned, disruptive, could be a really good player, and could open up the pass rush for other people because he can make that offensive line worry about him with some double teams. So we're going to take Jalen Carter in this scenario, which sets us up for a lot of possibilities, and that's a really good draft if you're a Texans fan, getting a possible franchise quarterback and a defensive tackle who can be disruptive right away. Still need to get an edge rusher, still need to get some wide receiver help. But also they need help all over. So if there's another guy who falls to them, they may just take him. Looks like Brian Branch fell to their second round pick. He'd be a solid choice. They got Jalen Petrie last draft, so that would be a safety to pair with him. They got Isaiah Foskey, who's a potential first round pick out of Notre Dame. I believe he has 22 sacks over the last 2 years. Jahmyr Gibbs. They have Dameon Pierce. If the new coaching staff doesn't like Dameon Pierce, maybe they go Jahmyr Gibbs for more of a playmaking running back rather than an every down, grinded out back. Josh Downs would not be a bad pick if we wanted a weapon for C.J. Stroud in his first year. Also, Darnell Washington at tight end would be a really, really good pick for them. But I think I'm going to go Isaiah Foskey. Getting that edge rusher, they really revamped that defensive line. DeMeco Ryans, I think, will value those defensive linemen because he had a lot of talented ones in his time in San Francisco as defensive coordinator. And we'll see if we can get some more help for C.J. Stroud a little bit later on in the draft, whether that's offensive lineman or wide receiver help or tight end. All right, we're at the next pick, and looks like there's a lot of defenders who are at the top of the board here. Andre Carter, Chris Smith, Andrew Voorhees, Garrett Williams. Not many offensive guys. So for that reason, I'm going to go Andrew Voorhees, the interior offensive lineman out of USC. The Texans are a team that have Titus Howard. They have Laramie Tunsil at the tackle spots. But the interior of the line could really use some help. Voorhees could help right away. Getting him in the third round is not bad value there. And you still have some picks here that are not too far behind, so we can still get some of these guys who are left on the board. With this pick, I would consider going with Tucker Kraft, the tight end, South Dakota State. He played in the FCS championship this year. He's been on the radar for draft people for at least the last year or so. There's not many wide receivers in the range, as you can see. So if that's going to be the case, I would like to get more help for C.J. Stroud as we just picked him. So we'll go Tucker Kraft with this pick and see if we can get a wide receiver to kind of fall in a little bit later parts of this draft. There's a little bit of a gap here for the Texans. They go from pick 73 to pick 104 with some of those comp picks stepping in there. And again, just going to reject all these trades. Just not, these seem okay, but there's some times where you can get some just pretty lopsided trades here. All right, I think it's time to go after that wide receiver. Marvin Mims was pretty good for Oklahoma over his time. Parker Washington made some acrobatic catches for Penn State. Xavier Hutchinson's got more of the outside build. In this one, I think I'm going to go with Marvin Mims. He was very productive over his career, specifically in 2021 under Lincoln Riley. Decided to stay at Oklahoma. I think he could be maybe wide receiver 2 for a team. I don't think he's going to be wide receiver 1, but maybe they can address wide receiver 1 in free agency and get C.J. Stroud as help that way. All right, the next pick. We got DeMarvion Overshawn, who pretty good linebacker. We're all pretty athletic, but I think that would be the pick here if you're looking at it. There's some other guys on the board here, but they do need linebacker help. And again, they're a team that needs help all over. So if you can diversify your draft here, get plenty of impact players at several different positions, I think that would be the move as we move on into the later rounds of the draft. The next pick up for them is 188. But I like the draft so far. You get C.J. Stroud, you get Jalen Carter. Those are two of the best players in the draft. You get Foskey for the defensive line, Voorhees for the offensive line, Tucker Kraft and Marvin Mims as targets, DeMarvion Overshawn as a linebacker. And now you can get Jacorian Bennett at corner. Last year, the Texans took Derek Stingley at corner. They have Steven Nelson at the other corner, but maybe getting another guy you can develop, maybe see if you can be a long-time starter outside of Derek Stingley. The next pick is up here. I would take Dante Demas, the wide receiver out of Maryland. They've had a couple receivers in this draft who I think will be worth taking. He could be a good outside receiver for the Texans, and I think if you just take a couple receivers in this draft, one of them maybe works out for you. So I would go with Dante Demas with that pick. And as you see, they're giving me first round picks for my 6th round pick here. Just not really reliable. With the next pick, I would go here with Ali Gay out of LSU, an edge rusher. Didn't always have the greatest production, but again, if you're just going to stack picks at different positions, I think this is a good spot to try to get the best value out of it. We are down to the second last pick in the draft at pick 207. They have offensive tackle still as a need. Doesn't look like there's any within the range. That's going to be a little bit of a problem here, but they still do have Titus Howard and Laramie Tunsil, so maybe it wouldn't be that big of a deal. We'll go with Keandre Coburn, the defensive lineman out of Texas. Again, doubling down on positions of need is not the worst thing in this draft for the Texans. They need a lot of help at a lot of different places. So if you need help, just go ahead and do it. This is the last pick of their draft to pick 239. These picks, I usually go best player available. Some of these guys we've taken 2 players to their position, so it doesn't seem like they would maybe pan out with this team. I'll go Connor Galvin, the left tackle out of Baylor. I think he can be positional. He can be versatile position-wise. He's been a very, very good player in the Big 12 over his career, so maybe that's a guy who can kind of pan out and make the roster and at least provide some depth, if not move inside to play a different position. As Jimmy Johnson always used to say with the Cowboys, you can get offensive linemen later in the draft. Maybe the Texans will be able to do that and get some help there. So we'll look back at the draft real quick. We have C.J. Stroud. You get your potential franchise quarterback. If other people will prefer Bryce Young, I think it's a matter of preference. Some will disagree with that, but I really do like C.J. Stroud's accuracy, ability to put balls on the money, and I do think he helped his draft stock with his performance against Georgia. Jalen Carter, one of the most disruptive defensive linemen we've seen at the early parts of the draft over the last several years. He was making headlines even last year when Georgia had so many talented players on their defense in the 2021 NFL season. Isaiah Foskey, a lot of people have him as a first-round pick as an edge rusher. That'd be a really good pick at the top of the second round. Andrew Voorhees, the interior offensive lineman, could really help out their offensive line. Tucker Kraft, Marvin Mims, weapons for C.J. Stroud. And you move on down the line, just a couple other good guys there at positions of need. Really like the Connor Galvin pick to close it out. It's my turn to remind everyone to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. We'll be back with more team mock drafts. Thanks everyone for watching.